Alrighty. So, I believe it's time to get started this morning. So today we're talking about petscaping, which isn't a term that I knew that I was super familiar with, but I think it's really important. So petscaping really, it's a term that is kind of being thrown around in the space right now, used to describe using landscape design and to make considerations for your pets. I have pets. I have a couple cats that stay inside, but I know a lot of us here in Hernando County have pets. We love dogs. We love cats. And we want to create a great environment in our yards for them if you have them in your yards. And that's a pretty looking dog right there, I think. That's why I put it on the first page. So let's get started. Okay. So there are many things that you might want to consider when you're designing a landscape to use for your pet to make use of. Some of those are plant choice. That's a really important one. The location of where you're putting your plants, how you're treating for disease and pest, how you're composting, and way more than that. Like, we're going to get into it. All those things can be affected by your pet, and we're going to take special considerations. That's what petscaping is. We're going to take those special considerations when we're petscaping in our landscape. So the most common pets, we all know this, cats and dogs. Like I said, I'm a cat person personally, but dogs are cool too. Everybody's got dogs. So first we're going to talk about cats. Most animal organizations recommend keeping your cat indoors, and I'm not going to tell you how to raise your animals, but I keep my cats inside, and the reason for that is really it's to protect the cat and to protect the outside as well. Indoor cats are shielded from a lot of diseases and parasites and a lot of injury common with outdoor cats, and I'm sure that those of us with outdoor cats have either had our cat went missing for a few days and come back and be all beat up, and that doesn't seem happy for them. But something that I wasn't super aware of when it comes to cats is that they are incredibly efficient hunters, and my cats are super goofy, but I've seen them go crazy over a lizard in the house, right? And they're just in the house. So cats are really efficient hunters, and you wouldn't think so, but in just the U.S., this was a crazy statistic that just outside cats will kill over 1 billion birds, 1 billion mammals, and 1 billion amphibians in just the United States every year. And it's really that's really a crazy number. They have had such an effect. Outdoor cats, domestic cats, have had such an effect on small mammal, amphibian, and bird populations in the United States. There have been real ecological effects, and they are. I want to say that the statistic says that they are the most efficient hunters in the United States when we're talking about animals. There's a really great podcast on keeping your cats outside called, it's from Stuff You Should Know. So if you look up Stuff You Should Know Outdoor Cats, you'll find that. And they talk about all those statistics there. And I quite enjoyed it. I thought it was super entertaining. So for me, my recommendation is keep your cats inside. Cats are also really sensitive to a lot of different plants. And it's really hard. My cats are mischievous, and they're going to get into all kind of plants, and they're going to eat stuff. And I just try to keep them keep a good eye on them and make sure. And for me, that's keeping them inside. So dogs, nobody keeps their dog inside all the time. You couldn't do that. So we got to let our dogs outside. And dogs can be territorial, and your dog may be the sweetest, most kind little puppy in the world, but when it sees an unfamiliar animal, it's going to react a certain way, and they can be territorial. They want to protect you. They want to protect their house, their home. So if you have a possum or a gopher tortoise in your yard and it sees it, it might get a little aggressive. And animals are pretty smart. They're going to see, hey, there's a predator that lives in this area. We want to make sure that we're not letting our dogs just scare off all the little animals that are there, because they're not going to come back. They know that there's a predator there, and they're like, this is a danger zone. I'm going to stay away from here. And like I said earlier, dogs need their outside time. So if you can, just keep an eye on them, because we would hate to see our dogs get bit by a snake or something like that we could have prevented if we were keeping our eye on them when they're outside. But it'll keep them from getting hurt and from scaring away the local wildlife, because dogs love to chase. We all know that. And in addition to that we have a ton of things that they could get into that might not be the healthiest for them, and we want to avoid any unintended health consequences just for letting our dogs outside. So after that, we'll move on to plant toxicity. Now, there are plenty of plants that we kind of take for granted as being, these are safe, we have them all over our yard and it's fine. So many plants can be toxic to cats and dogs, and really even to people. So we're going to go over a couple examples of these different plants and kind of what goes into them being toxic. So for dogs, when you get into like specific ones for dogs and cats, there's not a whole lot that are only for dogs, only for cats. Black walnut, not good for dogs. Cats cannot be around lilies. I know that cats really like to eat grass. They have those little grass patches that you can put on your windowsill or whatever to let your cat eat, and they like that, but cats are just going to chew on plants and eat plants for whatever reason. But lilies are incredibly toxic to cats, and that's something that you really need to watch out for. But some of the examples that are toxic to both dogs and cats, we have aloe. I've never seen a dog or a cat eat aloe, but I'm sure that someone out there has, because they know it's toxic. Chrysanthemum, Kunti, and other cycads. So I'm a personal advocate for Kunti. I like Kunti. I think it's a nice Florida native, Florida-friendly plant. It's pretty low maintenance. But the Kunti, their seeds, the little fruits that come off of them and from the middle, they are incredibly toxic to both cats and dogs, and I would imagine people too. So don't eat Kunti seeds. One or two of those will kill a dog, and that's really sad because they're very common around here. So we really just have to watch what we're planting, especially when we need to take our plant's health, we need to take our plant's health into consideration, but our animal's health into consideration as well. And another example is gardenia. Another part of petscaping when we get out of plant choice is different landscape considerations that you're when planning and placing your plants. Open areas are a big thing. We know our dogs like to run, and they like to have an area to really get out and spread their legs. And giving them that open area with some nice soft turf that it's easy on their paws, that can be incredibly helpful for for keeping them out of the areas that we want to keep our plants safe. This is kind of the other half of it, is that not only are we keeping our animals safe, we're going to keep our plants safe as well. So having that open area that keeps them out of your beds and stuff is super helpful, and that kind of goes into the training pathways as well. Of course, if you're designing your landscape and you put pathways in, there's no way you're going to force your dog to go anywhere specific, but it might help train by giving really an open area, a lane, if you will, for them to run through. And I think that's a better way to get your training into, hey, let's stay out of the flower beds, let's use our paths. The low borders and raised beds, this is kind of, again, if they really want to get into it, they're going to get into it, but the borders and stuff kind of give it a natural angle to go. They're going to take the path of least resistance most of the time, and going over a border or a raised bed, keeping those plants a degree of separation between them and the turf that your dog's going to want to run on is a great way to keep your dog out. It's really just kind of a deterrent, because it's kind of when you first do your landscape, they're going to want to learn where they can and can't play, where they can and can't, or where they want to be, and those low borders and raised beds will be, like I said, kind of a deterrent. If we plant really dense, I know some dogs, for instance, if you plant a bunch of palmettos somewhere, it's a real dense plant, some dogs will just barrel on through, boom, they'll go right through, and you can't do anything about it. But that's not all dogs. And planting really dense kind of gives the plants a degree of protection, because the dog is going to see it and be like, hey, I can't just run through that. It's like a wall, and that'll keep them kind of out of running through them. Using large pots is a big one. So once again, some of you guys may have really big dogs that you could have a big, heavy 5-gallon pot down, and that thing your dog will just run over it and it'll be done. But using bigger pots makes them harder to knock over and kind of give the plant a fighting chance. If you have a kind of a clumsy dog that'll run into stuff and knock it over. I know a lot of us do. And we want to use some pet-friendly mulch. You really don't want mulch that's going to get stuck in their fur or be really like harsh on their paws. I know a good option is the small cedar chips. Those are great for they're kind of heavy, so they're not going to get caught in the fur. They're not going to bring it in the house, but they're also gentle on their paws. So that's just one of your options there when choosing mulch. So let's talk about what we're not going to do. And what we're not going to do is leave our compost easily accessible. Now, eating compost may just sound like nasty, but if you're throwing your vegetables and food scraps in there, your dog may get something that you really don't want them to have, and that just goes in again to, hey, this might not be the most healthy thing. It might they might eat, throw a bunch of grapes in there. The dogs can't have grapes. That's real bad. There you go. That's just one example. We want to avoid our harmful plants that we talked about earlier. If you have cats that are outside, don't plant a bunch of lilies. Don't plant a bunch of kunzis if you know your dog likes to go rummage through in your plants. We want to avoid things like ticks. If we kind of keep our leaf litter off and keep your grass mowed at a good height, which for Bahia grass and St. Augustine grass is about 4 inches. Keeping your grass mowed well, keeping the leaf litter from overtaking one part of your yard or overtaking your whole yard, that'll keep things like ticks down. And really, we don't want to overspray chemicals, and that's a big thing, because if we're overusing chemicals just to treat insects or just to treat plants, if we're using too much, your dog's out there rolling around in it, and those chemicals are designed to kill stuff. And while it might not be a death sentence for your dog to get, or you even, or your kids to even get some pesticide, it's not good. And we want to avoid any type of unintended pesticide contact if we can. There's a reason why on all those pesticide labels that we have incredibly detailed PPE requirements for using those pesticides. So that's all I got on Petscaping. It is super important, and if you have any questions about Petscaping or you want to bounce some ideas off me, please don't hesitate to contact me at any of these on any of these social medias I have here, and on those you can find my phone number, my email. Shoot me an email. Just let me know if you have any questions.